This is a Willets Point Shea Stadium bound 7 express train. The next and last stop is Willets Point, Shea Stadium.
Oh, yes, it is the Subway to Shea podcast. Anthony Rivera here with you, talking about all the news and happenings surrounding that team from Queens, the New York Mets. Episode 143, live from the Subway to Shea studios in my office. If you are tuning in via YouTube or Twitter, even if you're on Twitter, hop on over to YouTube, join the chat, join the conversation, taking your comments, taking your questions for the next hour or so, talking all things New York Mets. Want to do a huge shout out to all the men and women that serve in this country. I know it's Memorial Day, and if it's not for their sacrifices, I wouldn't be here right now. And I know a lot of you guys wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be here, wouldn't be able to, enjoy a barbecue on Memorial Day. I wouldn't be able to bring you this content. So shout out to all the men and women who risk their lives and who sacrifice their lives for us so that we can do the things we do. Another shout out and thanks to Nick Durst, who was the co-host with me last week, host of the Believe in the Mets podcast, also hosts the You Know I'm Right podcast. You can catch that on YouTube and listen and subscribe wherever you enjoy podcasts. So shout out to the 15 people who have joined us right now. Shout out to my guy, Carlos Ramos in the house. Shout out to Carlos Ortiz, Brad in the house, Junior Swingman in the house. Shout out to Ibby, my guy, Matt Ibby Ibanez from Till Mets Do Us Part, and excited to talk Mets with you. I know it's not an exciting time to be talking Mets because they are on a very low right now. Shout out also to Shea Parking Lot. How you doing, my friend? Let's get right into the topics today. And we got to start from where we left off last week, and that was the beginning of the last leg of the road trip in Cleveland. So we have a little bit of a recap. I know a lot of people don't want to hear the recaps of what happened in this series, especially since the Mets got swept, but we got to do it. We have to do it, and that's what we're going to do. Shout out to James Nolan as well. Happy Memorial Day to you as well, my friend. Here we go. Let's get into this recap here. Look, the Mets really suffered during this series from a lack of fundamental baseball, a lack of awareness on the base paths, bad defense, bad situational hitting, and it cost them 3 games. Guardians swept that series 3-0. Tyler McGill's return was spoiled. He pitched very well, but the Mets lose 3-1. 5 innings pitched, 4 hits, 3 runs, only 2 earned because of some bad defense, 2 walks, as well as 7 strikeouts, which is nice to see. Like I said, lack of fundies on the field, on the base pass. You go to game 2, the Mets comeback fell short. They lost 7-6, but you got home runs from Marte. You got another home run from Mark Vientos, and you got a home run from Jack McNeil, who had 2 in the series. Adrian Hauser, hopefully this is the last time. I don't want to say the last time we see him, although a lot of people will say yes to that. I assume that he's going to go to the bullpen, or at least until we bring up Jose Budo, because if it's between him and Jose Budo, give me Budo every time. But Adrian Hauser, 5 innings pitched, 6 hits, 6 runs, 6 earned runs, 1 walk, and 4 strikeouts. He was not good, although he tends to say differ. But look, man, giving up 6 earned runs does not help this team, and he did not help the Mets in that game. Game 3, the Mets blow a 3-0 lead. They lose 6-3. Jose Quintana pitched very well. He pitched very well and just had 1 blip in the script there. 6 innings pitched, 4 hits, 3 runs, 3 earned runs, no walks, 4 Ks. Alonso hit a home run. Like I said, McNeil with his second. Harrison Bader with a very important home run in this loss. And I say that because we all know the Mets have been getting hit year in, year out. Harrison Bader got hit for no reason. I think it came off after the McNeil home run. What does he do in the next bat to Tristan McKenzie, who hit him? He hits a home run off of them. That's how you retaliate. That's how you respond. And Harrison Bader is really growing on me. He has played very well this season. Great defense. And I think he's batting around 288. If you love batting average, like I still do, I know it's not the most important stat in the world, but it's still important to me. And I think Harrison Bader has done a terrific job in the opportunities he's been giving and has had some clutch hits. So good for him there. Reed Garrett, Adam Ottavino both struggled. They gave up 4 hits, 3 earned runs, 2 walks, and 3 strikeouts. The big blow to Jose Quintana came via that guy right there, Andres Jimenez. How fitting was it that Andres Jimenez was the one that hit the the game tying home run off of Jose Quintana, and that changed the whole trajectory of the game. The Mets didn't score after that, and big struggle right there for the Mets. And, I look at Andres Jimenez, and it makes me want to go out and kind of revisit the Francisco Lindor trade. And I'm not here to do any grades or say this side won or that side won. That we don't know for a while now. Obviously, Andres Jimenez has played well, and Francisco Lindor, to a certain extent, has played well as well. But you look at the trade, just to go back, revisionist history. Francisco Lindor, Carlos Carrasco came from the Cleveland Guardians, and we sent over Andres Jimenez, Ahmed Rosario, Josh Wolf, and Isaiah Green. Right now, Josh Wolf and Isaiah Green are still in the minors. Carlos Carrasco and Ahmed Rosario kind of cross each other out because they're not on the same teams anymore. Carrasco was 19-20 with a 5.21 ERA with the Mets in his totals, but 2022 was a solid season for him. 15-7 with a 3.97 ERA in the 2022 season. That year that they won 101 games, he was very important. Although he started to fall apart towards the latter end of the season, and I don't even think they used him in the postseason. Then you got Ahmed Rosario you look at, since we're going to cross those two guys out. 278 batting average, 25 homers, 168 RBIs, 40 stolen bases, and a 711 OPS. He got traded to the Dodgers in 2023, and then he went on to sign with the Tampa Bay Rays this season. Now to the main components of this trade, right? Because it's really Francisco Lindor and Andres Jimenez. Francisco Lindor with the Mets so far in his career, 248 batting average, has 84 home runs, 291 RBIs, 63 stolen bases, and a 764 OPS. Won the Silver Slugger last season, also hit 30-30 last season. Pretty good in 2023 as well as 2022. Andres Jimenez was 265 batting average so far, 41 home runs, 177 RBIs, 68 stolen bases, and a 745 OPS. All-star, 2-time Gold Glove winner. I think Francisco Lindor also should have made an all-star team. I think he got screwed last season. So, or was it 2022? One of the seasons he got screwed, because I know he hopped on late, hitting well last season. But look, we can't go back and say, I didn't want to do this trade. The Mets needed to make a move in 2022 or 2021 when, Steve Cohen, the new general manager, Jared Porter, was in place, because he's the one who made the trade. We all forget Jared Porter was in charge of the Mets when that trade went down. He wasn't there. I think a week later he was fired for the stupidity of himself, and that's when Zach Scott took over. Then the Mets had to make the signing, right? A lot of people are saying, why did the Mets re-sign Francisco Lindor? Why didn't they just wait? The reason is because a lot of the fans were saying, if you don't sign Francisco Lindor, this was a waste of a trade because you're going to let him go to free agency. Now, a lot of fans saying that they shouldn't have made the trade. They should have waited for Marcus Semien and Corey Seager and Trey Turner. Everyone up to the last minute before opening day was getting on Steve Cohen for not getting this deal done with Francisco Lindor. And at the last minute, he finally did. And everyone was happy about it. So the revisionist history to go back and check in on this trade and say that this is a bust trade, we don't know yet, right? Their careers are not over. Once one of them gets traded, or, injury plague season, or down the line when Lindor retires in 8 or 9 or 10 years or 11 or whatever, that's when you start to say this team won this trade or not. Like the Edwin Diaz trade, right? The Mets won the Edwin Diaz trade. You can't tell me any different. I know he's struggling now. He struggled at the start. He had a big 2022 season. And Jared Kelenic is now on the Braves. So Seattle did not win that trade to me. So to look back on the Lindor trade, I don't know what your guys' thoughts and feelings are on the Lindor trade, but I think right now we are incomplete on that. Shea parking lot saying Lindor was the right move. The chicken parm was delicious, and we got a solid player. Junior Swingman saying it still was the right move to make. Matt AB Ibanez saying timing is everything. You traded 4 unknowns for an all-star shortstop. Carlos Ramos agreeing with me. It was a statement move, a statement with intent, and we can't have it both ways. I agree. Shout out to Talking Rob with Mets. If you didn't check out his live stream last night, make sure you do. He had on, I think it was Hector was on there, CP was on there. I think you had a new guest on there. I don't know his name, but I know you guys killed it on that show. Also, Ibby and Carson and Johnny Sapp and the Rhino and Frank About Sports. They also had a live stream. Make sure you can always check these and go back and check them out. So that's a good part about these content creators is they all put out some good information. Talking Mets with Rob also says the Mets were proactive and they're getting killed for it when there were multiple baseball analysts saying there could be 3 shortstops that could get 250 to 300 mil in that offseason. Lindor could be a free agent. Looking back now, right? Like we all say, oh, if the Mets didn't make that deal, looking back at it now, they probably could have got Francisco Lindor for cheaper, right? This whole deal was based on the fact of what Fernando Tatis got earlier before that contract was signed with the Mets, right? Fernando Tatis in San Diego, I think, got $299 or something like that. And then Lindor jumped him by like $1 mil or so. I don't know the exact particulars, but that's why he got 300 mil is because of what Fernando Tatis did. But you go a year later, Francisco Lindor struggled in 2021, probably could have been gotten for cheaper, or the Mets could have went out and gotten Corey Seager or Simeon or Trey Turner. But here's how this works out. The Mets don't sign Francisco Lindor, and I guarantee you these guys would have already been signed elsewhere. Or because the Mets stunk in 2021 and don't have a winning culture, which I'm going to get into a lot in this show, maybe none of those guys want to come here. Maybe Steve Cohen's money's just not enough to bring one of those guys over here, and we have to overpay anyway. We might have had to pay even more than $300 million. So we might have gotten a steal with Francisco Lindor there. That's just my thoughts on it. But like I said, we can't be revisionist. We can't go back. Shout out to my guy, Chris Ferro, in the chat. I appreciate him. Matt Ibanez saying, shall I call the Red Hulk John Saponaro? I think we got to give John a little rest, and I'm excited for you to play that little hinty video in your show this week. So that's going to be fun. Chris Ferrer saying he's heading to Citi Field tomorrow. Maybe I'll see you there because I'll be there as well. Not to watch the game, but to get my little tote bag, right? Like everybody's there to go, like mostly forward to give away a new vodka chicken parm sandwich in the truck. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the game is a lot less on people's minds than what people think here. Let's see what else we got here. James Nolan. I want Lindor, but at the same time, I think what frustrates the fans is they know he's better than what his numbers say right now. And that's exactly true, right? Look, everyone is going to say, and what I have been told by a lot of people is he was a 30-30 guy last year. He'll come back and do it again. And I believe it because that's the track record of Francisco Lindor. He signed on for another 8 or 9 years. Every year can't be him struggling out the gate, batting 203 by the end of May. We can't have that. We just can't. The whole point of him being a $300 million man is he is the man, right? He is the man of this team. He is the leader, the captain, or forget the captain. He is the leader of the team, right? He's the superstar of the team. So you got to start, acting like you're the superstar of the team. You have to produce like you're that guy. And he has not been doing that this year, and it has been costly. I am not saying that all of this is on Francisco Lindor. It is not. Pete Alonso has not done his job. Jeff McNeil has not done his job. Brandon Nimmo's starting to come around, but at the beginning of the season, he wasn't doing his job. This entire core group was not doing their jobs, to the fact that now we are 21-28 on the season, 3 games back of not the first wild card, of not the second, but the third wild card, to me is unacceptable with a group of guys that, you know, like James Nolan says, we know that they're better than what their numbers show. So I need to see Francisco Lindor step up and get big hits in big situations. He's done it in the past. We've seen him. He did it once this year. But there have been so many opportunities, not only for Lindor, but for Alonso and for Marte and for McNeil, and they're not coming through. These are the guys you're counting on. I'm not supposed to count, and we as Met fans are not supposed to count on Harrison Bader to come through in the clutch all the time, or Tyrone Taylor, right? Mark Vientos. Those are your component players right now. The big opportunities come to Nimmo, Lindor, Alonso, JD Martinez, and Jeff McNeil. Those are supposed to be the guys that come through big for you, and they just have not done it this season. It's frustrating, but you know, this is a crucial 10-game homestand to me that will determine what happens at the trade deadline. Oh, you can say it's still early. No, this is not. 3 games against the Giants, 3 games against the Dodgers, and 3 games against the Arizona, not 3 games, 4 games against the Arizona Diamondbacks. To me, it's put up or shut up, because the Mets can't do this. This happened in June last year, right? The June soon. Right now, it's May Day. And I'm not going to take credit for that. Someone else said that on Twitter, and I just wanted to use it. I thought that was cool to say. But another thing with Lindor that I want to get into, and I'm going to bring this up, is his quote that he said in Cleveland. Because a lot of people were upset about the things that he said. Now, first, I had to make sure that on top of me listening to the clip of what he was saying, because I don't listen to pressers anymore. I'm tired of it. They say the same thing. They repeat themselves. But this was an important one. He was going back to Cleveland. A lot of people made a big stink about it. And the question, because I wanted to make sure that I got the question before I got his answer. The question was, what are your fondest memories of your time here in Cleveland? Francisco Lindor goes on to say, winning. Winning. There's nothing better than winning. I know we didn't finish the ultimate goal. We didn't close it out. But just the experiences of winning and pouring champagne on each other and creating memories. That way with teammates, their families, our whole entire family front office. It was a great experience, and seeing the crowd, how they got behind us with the rally towels, and when it was all red and white, it was pretty cool. I mean, I don't think this is a slight to the Mets. I know some people took it as a slight to the Mets. I don't think it that way. I want to know how you guys feel. You could tell me if I'm wrong. That's fine. All opinions matter on this show and on this channel, so I'll take them as they come. We can disagree. We can agree to disagree. So, look, he's not wrong, right? I mean, he went to the freaking World Series with the Cleveland what was the Cleveland Indians is now the Cleveland Guardians. They went to the World Series. They took it all the way to his 7th game in extra innings. Probably one of the best World Series that I've seen in my lifetime. Definitely of the last decade, because a lot of them have been stinkers. But a 7-game classic against the Cubs. I don't fault Francisco Lindor for saying this. But if there was, let's say there was some type of, I don't want to say a jab, but if there was some kind of correlation to the way the Mets were playing, then boy, not only does the team need to step up, but like I said, Francisco Lindor needs to step up as well, because he has just not delivered this year. He hasn't. I'm sorry. And even if he does get 30-30 this season, because I believe he can, I don't want this to be a hollow 30-30. And when I say that, I don't want this team to be out of contention, because right now they are, when he is racking up these stats. I want Francisco Lindor to be the reason why we get into this trade deadline and our buyers, why we're on our path to the postseason. I want Lindor to be a part of that. But he's got to start stepping up starting tonight. Him, Pete Alonso. Nimmo can do more. JD Martinez, he hasn't had he's hit well, but he hasn't had a hit in the big spot yet. McNeil starting to come around because he's got his knobless bat again. So, look, I am here to support this entire team. I will do it to the end of my existence, but I am a little frustrated, and you can hear it in my voice. I want this team to succeed. You want this team to succeed, and they better start doing it starting this weekend, or it's going to get very, very quiet at Citi Field. It has already been quiet most of the season. I got a ticket plan, and these guys are not doing justice to the fans because they are not showing up for these games. A part of it is because it's a little expensive. The food's expensive, travel's expensive, the weather's been terrible. Other sports have been going on. But once the Knicks and the Rangers are done, there's a lot of focus and talk that's going to be on the Mets. So they better turn this around, and they better turn it around soon. I want to get to the chat because I've missed 31 comments so far, so I apologize for that. I went on my little spiel there of talking, and I've missed some of your comments, so we are going to do that right now. Let's see what we got here. And bear with me because it takes me a while, especially when I'm doing this by myself. And we will see how we go here. Rosie K saying, the issue is thinking Lindor is the guy. He's not the guy. Mets need to add superstars to the lineup. Maybe he's not, right? Maybe you're right. Maybe he's not. But unfortunately, he's getting paid to be the guy. When you're getting paid to be the guy, you got to step up and be that guy. But like you said, maybe he's not. I don't know. Carlos Ramos saying, let's talk about this culture of mediocrity. We have not gotten rid of it. That's the biggest red flag. I am going to get to that because that's more towards the end of the show, but we're going to hang on to that. Ibby saying he needs a Xanax. Yes. Also, the tote bag. Hey, man, I got to get my... I wouldn't be shocked if some fans put that tote bag over their head if this team continues to lose. So we'll see. And yes, Steve Cohen did rave about the tote bags today. So a lot of fans weren't happy about that. He had to see that coming. Craig M saying, let's see if I could get that. There we go. Craig M saying Lindor was a career 285, 346, 488 at age 27 before coming to New York. How does that deal not make sense at the time? Right. I mean, the deal made total sense, and so did the signing. There's no way none of that made sense. But you can't now go back in time, and because he's playing bad now, and because Andres Gimenez is playing good, and say, oh, I wish we didn't do the trade. That's not how it works, unfortunately. It's just not. Chris Ferrer saying, overpay to get the right talent here, and I don't want to hear about money. Do it to win, to try and win the darn title every year. Told spending happens till the farm can produce. Yes. But you got to get to a point where you're not overpaying these players. The Yankees are paying a lot of money for the players, but they don't have to exorbitantly overpay because they have a winning team there. They have a winning culture there. Not a lot of people want to play for the Mets. And we've heard from guys who have not been fans of this clubhouse and who have felt some weird way about the culture that this team brings and represents and the fan base brings. That has to be put into account. Carlos Stern was saying, I've been told that solo home runs are the most important way of winning a World Series, so I digress. And I assume that comes from yesterday's show. I missed part of it, so I can't attest to that. But I am a old head when it comes to baseball. Batting average, like I said, home runs, RB. A very balanced game type guy. But baseball's changing, so I guess I got to change with the times. So we'll see. Continuing down here. Shea parking lot. Are we going to win in the City Connects tomorrow? Honestly, I don't know. But honestly, they can't win in their away jerseys. They can't win in their pinstripe jerseys or their black jerseys or their blue jerseys. They're just not winning. I don't put too much into that stock. James Nolan saying, I'd trade Pete and keep Lindor. Bring in another star for Lindor. He's the Mets' Julius Randle. He needs a Brunson. Interesting. I never thought of it that way, but I did compare on Jake Brown's show, Mets Magic, as well as on the Mets Evening Brew last night with Al Cintrone and Eddie Presti. I did compare this version of the Mets. Well, at least starting in 2022, that version of the Mets felt to me like the version of the Knicks when they signed Stoudemire and they signed and they traded for Carmelo Anthony, and they had like that 1 or 2 year good run, and then they completely fell apart. Not saying that that's going to happen here because the Mets had the good run in 2022. They've had a bad year. I hope that doesn't continue, and I hope they can turn it around. But the comparison I thought was pretty fair to make. Let's see what else we got here before I go on to the next topic. Rosie K saying, if the team is consistently underperforming, are they really better than their numbers? No. You're right. They're not. I mean, look, Rosie K, we've seen it, right? We've seen, you can go all the way back to 2019 when Pete and Nimmo got here. Well, Nimmo was here before, but Pete, McNeil, that's when I start this whole thing. And then on from 2020 and on and on and on, right? 1 year they have made it to the playoffs. 2 years out of the 5 or 6 of them, they've been over 500. And this team consistently falls short and doesn't live up to the expectations. So you're not wrong on that point. Craig N saying, Ant, you're going to make me find those Nimmo, Lindor, Alonso, McNeil numbers again, aren't you? Yes, probably. I wish that I kept the numbers on me, but I just didn't. I apologize for that. Junior Swingman saying he won't hold his breath, hoping for a turnaround. That's probably the best way to go about this, right? To no expectations, just go through it day by day, turn on the game, watch it, they lose, turn off the game, go about your day. That's all we can do. All we can do at this point in time. Until they show us, like Rosie K, they show us that, they are better than this. And they just haven't yet. Christopher agreeing with me on the put up or shut up, and it starts tonight. You got to believe. I am still believing. But I will say this, and I told this to Ibby and John on their show. I am believing because David Stearns is here. David Stearns has the track record of putting a team together, like in the Milwaukee Brewers, who had no business being at the top of the league for close to a decade, and somehow consistently made it to the playoffs. I think they made it to a couple of championship series, built bullpens, put together good teams. If David Stearns is unable to do that here at Citi Field, and by the time he leaves, we are still in this same type of limbo, or maybe we made it to the playoffs once or not, I don't know if I have it in me to believe anymore. Not saying I'm giving up on the team, but to have certain levels of expectations for the team, I just don't know if I could do it. We all waited for David Stearns to get here since 2021, right? All the talk was, we got to get that executive. We got to get that team president, president of baseball operations. We need that. They wouldn't let us talk to him. They wouldn't let us talk to the other top guys. The guy from Oakland didn't want to come here. I can't remember. Billy Bean, right? And then you got the guy from Boston that it's Theo Epstein. He didn't want to come here. He wanted to own parts of the team, and he didn't want to come here. And we worked and worked to try to get someone. We landed on Billy Epler and Porter and Zach Scott, and it hadn't worked out. Now we have the guy that we want. It's his first year, and I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's come into this. And there was a great stat that Carson from Mets Weekly posted. I wish I had it on me. Actually, I don't. Maybe I don't know. I don't think I have it on me. But all of the signings that have worked out for David Stearns. Let me see if I have that. I'll pull it up on my phone. I may have screenshotted it, but there was all the players that. Here we go. All the hits David Stearns had this offseason. He did it by wins above replacement. I won't go over all the numbers, but here are all the hits that worked and then the misses. The hits, Sean Manaea so far, Luis Severino, Harrison Bader, Adam Ottavino to a certain extent, right? Jorge Lopez, JD Martinez, Tyrone Taylor, and Jake Diekman. And, we're talking about Jake Diekman before Brooks Raley got hurt. He was pitching well. And then the misses. So far, Fujinami, who has not been able to, one, stay healthy and has not pitched well in the minors. Adrian Hauser has been an absolute disappointment. And Joey Wendell. That's only three mistakes, three misses to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hits. So I believe in this guy. I believe that he could put a good bullpen together and that he'll take care of business here. But if he doesn't, like I said, I don't know how I could believe in any general manager outside of the Mets bringing in like a Dave Dombrowski who has shown success in Boston and now Philly and everywhere that he's went. I just don't know. But we'll see. Hopefully it'll work out. And we will see what happens there. Shout out to Jeff Cohen, also in the chat. Appreciate you being here. As we continue on to this, let's see. Ibby saying zero issue with the words that came from Francisco Lindor. He answered the question at hand, not a story, but because he's playing for a bad team and he's struggling, it becomes a bigger story. And that's why I wanted to put context to it. That's why I wanted to find what was the exact question that was being asked and the full response. And I think it's fine. I really do think it's fine. Carlos Ramos saying, the funny thing is how these fans are killing Lindor for that answer, yet when DeGrom literally took a dump on us on his introductory presser at Texas, no one said anything about it. And look, I'm still not over that whole DeGrom thing, and, that was his disappointment. But look, I'm not going to get too crazy with some of the things that have been said here. The players are obviously frustrated in their play. They're trying to play hard. They're just not coming through. And they're just going to have to play a lot bit harder or a little bit harder to try to get that, back on winning track. Jeff Cohen saying Pete needs to start bashing if he wants his big contract. This is true. I mean, he needs to start bashing if he doesn't want to get traded. So Chris Farrar is saying he's becoming Adam Dunn. Hopefully not. But we'll see what happens there. Ibby is going to be there on the 30th. I don't know. I will not be there on the 30th because I will be at the Dallas Strawberry game. So that's the one game I'm going through. Karen in the house. Appreciate you being here. She says, I'm dreading the Giants weekend. I can hear your frustrations, and I am too. This is a tough weekend because you got the three best pitchers right now from the Giants. Kyle Harrison will be pitching against Christian Scott tonight. You have Jordan Hicks, who's pitching against Luis Severino on Saturday. And then Sunday is Sean Manaea against Logan Webb. And Logan Webb completely destroys us all the time. So if you haven't done so, good segue, Karen. I appreciate that, because if you haven't done so, check out my series preview that I posted before the game. It's about 13 minutes long. I kind of separated it from the live show because the live show is more about, talking with you guys in the comments and certain topics. And then the series preview came in at the end and it just didn't make sense. So I do short series preview videos. Check it out. It's up there on my YouTube page. It's also in audio version. If you want to listen to it as a podcast, you can do that as well. So a lot of content coming out for you guys. Chris Ferro saying, you did a great appearance on the Sick podcast with Jake Brown. Yeah, Jake Brown's a good friend of mine, and I enjoyed doing that with him. A lot of ranting. If you saw Chris, a lot of ranting from Jake. Frustrated just as much as everybody else is, but appreciate that. Let's see what else we have here before we get on to the next topic at hand. Ibby also agreeing with me. Have to trust David Stearns, so you got to give him your full trust. Abso-freaking-lutely. Carlos Ortiz saying, when do we get over this hump? Well, my good friend Tone, Mets Trucker Podcast, was saying give it till June 15th. Probably a good point to do that. But like I said, this homestand is crucial. And like Carlos Ramos says, let's say we go 7-3 on this homestand. We all want to win. Of course, good. Would that be bad for the fans setting unrealistic expectations moving forward? This is still a retooling year. It's possible, right, Carlos? It's possible that can happen because you don't want to go into the trade deadline. Let's say the Mets going back into the trade deadline. They're still 3 games out, or maybe they're 4, 5, 6 games out. I don't want the Mets to go into the trade deadline in desperation buy mode like Anaheim did last season, where they bought and it floundered on them. It failed on them and they flopped and didn't even, I think about a week or 2 later, they were already done. I don't want that happening. And I don't think that's going to happen under David Stern's watch. I think he's going to be smart about it. And we have to be prepared as fans for this team to sell. We have to be. We don't want to see it, but we have to be prepared for this team to sell this year, for them to trade Pete Alonso, for them to trade a guy like Jeff McNeil. Heck, they might get a lot for Reed Garrett. He's under contract, and he's pitching very well. That might be one of your biggest chips. I don't want to see him go, but he's a big chip. Luis Severino, Sean Manaea. Those guys are pitching well. They're going to be free agents. Might help a team out. So I want fans to be optimistic, but also realistic and know that there's a possibility that at the trade deadline, this team is selling. We have to be. Because, and Rosie K is making good points here. I've seen nothing that would lead me to believe that this team can field, hit, pitch, and win games because they haven't shown it to us. At the very least, if this team is losing, can they at least field well? That's all David Stearns talked about was run prevention. And this team has been terrible about it. Whether it was bad plays in the outfield, whether you got Omar Narvaez with pass balls and wild pitches, whether, we're walking the ballpark and allowing these guys to steal bases. Then you have the offense that's consistently inconsistent. And then they can't run the base pass as we saw in Cleveland. It's an appetite for disaster. And that's all we've seen so far. Frustrating. Very, very frustrating. Yeah. I figured you would like that. Beyond the emphasis on dump. Oh, man. Let's see what else we got here. I'm going to go through a few more comments here and see what we can do. Oh, Ibby saying this is breaking right now. And let's get into this because this is definitely something that I was going to talk about next. Breaking Kodai Senga is now shut down 3 to 5 days. Inflammation in his triceps. So this leads into my next topic. And that is, how can the Mets fix this mess? And it was going to start off with the injuries. So I'm glad that we got a little bit of breaking news here. Not the news we wanted to hear, but On Monday, when I was on with Nick Durst, the news broke that, Kodai Senga had the tricep tightness, but he was back to throwing on Tuesday and playing like catch. Now, with what Ibby is saying, that he is now out 3 to 5 more days with inflammation in his triceps. All 91 of you that are in this room, first off, shout out to you all. Thank you all. Please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. Help this channel continue to grow. All 91 of you watching, everyone in the chat, do me a favor. Do not expect to see Kodai Senga this year. Just don't. Don't. Do not expect to see Kodai Senga this year, because I don't. And like Chris Farrar was saying, he's not going to hit the innings pitched requirement to opt out. And that's fine. You know what? Just let the guy heal right now. I have no expectations for him to come up. There are other pitchers down on the farm, down in the minor leagues that can come up, young live arms that can get thrown in here and start throwing some pitches. I have no expectations for Kodai Senga this season. And he is a ghost, Ibby. He is a ghost this season. Physically. So, yeah, we have yet to get some good news when it comes to this Met team. Like I said earlier, hit the like button. And Carl's saying hit that like button and hit the subscribe button. Really would help me out. Another injury, another player, Brooks Raley, out for the season. Tommy John surgery. He's done. And his Met career might be over. So the Mets are going to have to count on Jake Diekman, who's going to shoulder the load. This week, he wasn't good. 7.71 ERA. He struggled. The Mets don't have Nate Lavender, who's out with the Tommy John surgery as well. 2 lefties out on Tommy John surgery. How crazy is that? The positive is that Josh Walker has been pitching well, but that can blow up at any time. We all know that, right? 2.45 ERA, and he's got 7 strikeouts in his last 7 1/3 innings pitch. So he's another guy. Look, the Mets have to have 2 lefties in this bullpen. They need 2 lefties in this bullpen more than they need 2 hitting coaches on the bench. It's true. You got Danny Young, who pitched pretty well earlier on in the season. Obviously, you could bring up Joey Lucchesi, and David Peterson is getting ready to return soon. So maybe that's where the Mets go, but for sure, the Mets have to have 2 lefties to me come out of that bullpen. There are other moves that we can make as well. Could bring up Jose Budo. Bring him up for good. Enough shipping him up and down because he has options. If this team wants to win or at least be in contention of winning, every time Jose Budo's out, he does that job for you. Leave him in the rotation, please. So bring up Budo. Get rid of Adrian Hauser. If the hitting continues to struggle or continues to be inconsistent, it's time to wave bye-bye to Eric Chavez or Jeremy Barnes, or you know what? Heck, both of them. Because I don't even know why we have 2 hitting coaches to begin with. Time to move on from those 2. And let Stearns fully bring in his guys. And you may start to question Jeremy Hefner as well. Guy's been Teflon since I think Mickey Callaway was here. Actually, I'm sorry. He wasn't here for Mickey Callaway. He was here for Luis Rojas. But he's been here now through 3 coaches, through 3 managers. The Mets were at the top when it came to ERA, and now that has plummeted all the way to 17th. in Major League Baseball. So those would be my first moves, right? Bring up Jose Budo, let him finally be in the rotation for good. If the hitting's struggling, it's time to move on from the hitting coaches. And then you got to start thinking about Jeremy Hefner. Is he the right guy to lead this organization's pitching staff? Yes, he's had some good hits, but there are some things that I just don't like about him. There just are. I don't think he comes to the mound and does enough mound visits when these guys are struggling to prevent terrible innings from happening. He just doesn't. He sits back as if Scherzer was still on the mound, or DeGrom, or Justin Verlander. You have a bunch of reclamation projects and young kids that are pitching right now. They need the guidance. Struggling, man. This team is definitely a struggling big time. And like I said, the trade deadline is looming. So the Mets need to be very careful. Otherwise, Pete's gone. Maybe they can get rid of McNeil. Probably the starters will probably be gone. And then we're looking at a end of July, August, September of frustrating baseball where I'm going to sit in my house, wait for the a mail to come in, a letter from Steve Cohen and Alex Cohen telling me that the team is rebuilding. But I will say this. There are a lot of people that have been asking for this team to rebuild, like a full-on rebuild. Get rid of everybody and do a full-on rebuild. Be careful what you ask for. This is not basketball. This is not football. And this is not hockey. Players that are drafted don't just come up and start playing. There are many levels to the development of becoming a baseball player. Look how long it took Baltimore to retool. Look how long it took Texas to retool. Once you get it, like the Braves and the Dodgers, you're fine. But be careful what you're asking for, especially in this town where fans are impatient. They're not going to go to the ballpark. The team's going to lose money. You have to be careful for asking for a full rebuild. Ibby saying, I honestly think post-deadline we see a rotation that has Scott, Tidwell, and Hamill. I don't know too much about Hamill. I haven't heard too much about him. I've seen some of the stuff Tidwell's done and see him in AAA. I wish I followed the minors, as a lot of people do, but I wish I had the time, honestly. But it's just so much to follow, and that's why I count on guys like Ibby and a lot of the other great guys who cover the minor leagues. Ibby knows a lot of those players down there, and I just don't know how Hamill's been doing because I haven't heard much of what he's been up to recently. So it's we'll probably see a Tidwell soon, and that'll be nice. You throw Scott, you got Tidwell, you got Hamill, you got Jose Budo, and I think that's good. A good young rotation because this team needs to get young. Craig M coming up with the stats. My guy. Nimmo, McNeil, Lindor, Alonso career through 2022, 278, 357, 476. There you go. There you go. And when it comes to this rebuild, if you think, or whoever does, if anyone thinks that the Mets are going to be able to be big time players in free agency next year, you're going to be mistaken, because you are going to have to overpay by double to get some of these players to come here, because they're not going to want to come here if this team doesn't have a winning culture. They're just not. You're going to have to double overpay for a guy like Max Fried and a guy like Corbin Burns. Those are guys that I'm just throwing out there. Juan Soto. Is Juan Soto going to take 10 more mil from the Mets, who have not won and who just sold at the deadline, and leave a Yankee organization a team that's has a winning culture right now and hasn't had a losing season since who knows when was the last time the Yankees had a losing season. Not talking about missing the playoffs because they missed the playoffs and had winning seasons, but an actual losing season. But before we start thinking about World Series, playoffs, let's have a freaking winning season consistently. And that's going to start to attract people. That's how the Knicks started attracting players. They started winning. Mets have to develop a winning culture here. They have to figure it out. I don't want this to be another 2023. I want at least a winning season. Show some progress. The Mets need to get to a point where they don't have to overpay so much for these players. They have to figure it out because I guarantee you a lot of these star players would take a little less to go to the Dodgers, a little less to go to the Yankees, a little less to go to Atlanta, a little less to go to the Phillies, unless the Mets overpay by double. Carlos saying, breaking it, we will be adding the Mets content creator community. Hector from Blunt Thoughts was just recording his first pod. Let's show him some love and listen. Absolutely. Hector's a good friend of mine. We met up at the Queens Baseball Classic. We haven't been able to meet up at a game. He'll be on Subway to Shea at some point soon. But now that he's starting a podcast, shout out to him. Shout out to him on finally pulling the trigger on that. Appreciate that. Yuki Matsui saying, "Will Mendy survive after the season?" I think he will. You just can't keep changing the coaching staff and you know the front office. There needs to be some type of unity. Maybe after next year, maybe if they get let's say they have a terrible season, and then they get off to a horrible start next season. Maybe then I could see someone getting fired, and it would be Mendy, but not right now. I think we just have to go with the process. This is a guy that David Stearns was after. He got his guy, and that's, we're just going to have to go with it. And I think Mendy has done a commendable job. I don't think this is all on Mendy. I really don't. I really don't. Chris Farrar was saying, I've been tempted to start a pod or a show. Do it, man. Get out there and do it. If you're interested in doing it, I suggest you should. Especially if you loved it doing it and it's a great hobby or you want to, just have some fun, do it. No denying that at all. Hector, appreciate you being in the chat. Shout out to you, my friend, and congrats on the podcast. We will be in touch soon, my friend. That's for sure. Carlos Ortiz saying Mets will survive batting and pitching. Mendy will survive. Batting and pitching coaches have to go. Got it. Okay. Yes. You agree with me from earlier. Yeah, that's the next step. Those two coaches have to be the ones to go. All right, before we wrap up this show today, this has been a great show with you guys. I wanted to get into one more thing, and that is who's on third. And that's between Brett Baty and Mark Vientos. You look at these stats here for the season so far. A lot more at-bats for Brett Baty. He's got 138 at bat, or is that 130? Let me see because the screen's small on me. He's got 136 at bats to Mark Vientos' 28 at bats. Baty's batting 228 to Mark Vientos 357. Baty's got 3 home runs. Vientos has got 2. Baty's got 15 RBIs. Vientos has got 5. They each don't have a stolen base. The OPS for Vientos is way better, 1.133 to Baty's 611. Fielding percentage, obviously, in a short amount of time, there hasn't been any problem so far from Mark Vientos. And Brett Baty has had really good defense as well. Only 1 error on the season, but he's played some stellar defense, and that has been the best part to me for him of this season. But I think it's time to send Brett Baty down. He has not been playing well as of late. He's been struggling, and I think it's time to send him down. If this team is going to contend and move, they got to bring up some players here that are going to help them win. And Beatty's not doing it right now. He's just not. Let Vientos play third base. You send Brett Beatty down. You bring up my guy, Jose Iglesias, who I've been clamoring for all season long. Ibby will tell you, I've been asking for Jose Iglesias to come up and play. He's been playing well in AAA. He'll back up Lindor. He can back up second base as well. It's time. Beatty's time is done. It's time to move on to Mark Vientos and get him up here. I don't know if you guys agree. I don't know if you guys think that Beatty needs a little more time. But I think if this team wants to win and is looking to make a playoffs, I think it's time to send Beatty down, let him get reps in AAA. Obviously, he's going to hit the cover off the ball in AAA, but he just struggles here. And as long as Vientos is playing well, it's time. It's time to let Mark Vientos be the guy to play third base and let him be and take the charge there. But that's it for that portion there. Let me get to the chat before we wrap up the show. It's been a fun time here. If you're just coming in, you can check out the full video on YouTube. If you prefer audio version, this is going to be thrown up probably about an hour or two. You can listen to it on the audio version of the show. And 114 people in here with me going solo. Appreciate you all. Like I said, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Support Subway to Shea, support all the content creators that are out there. All the Met content creators are great. Getting to your comments on the Vientos Beatty situation here. Chris Ferrara saying, Beatty getting demoted back to Syracuse. Let's ride the wave with Vientos for now. Totally agree with that. Should happen. Hopefully it will happen sooner than later. Jeff Cohen, Vientos for the foreseeable future or until he starts to slump. Forget any platoon. Yeah, I think that Mark Vientos plays until he just is not playing well. If he continues to play well, play him every day. He's young. He can do it. He can handle it. He could definitely handle it. Ibby saying that, like they said on Mets Weekly last night, Beatty's time is over. Carlos Ramos saying, is Beatty being traded? I mean, it's possible, right? Because let's say Vientos plays very well. You got Ronnie Mauricio coming back next year, and a lot of people were saying that he was slated to be the third baseman before he got hurt. So then there's no room for Brett Beatty. And that's where the problem becomes, right? Yuki Matsui saying, I love Beatty, but he is a terrible hitter. Good guy, been a solid defender, really has grown as a defensive third baseman, just has not found his stroke hitting. And it's just disappointing to see. Karen Heckler saying, we all like Beatty, but Vientos needs to stay. Totally agree. Chris Frost saying, best intro music to a pod, Subway to Shea, hands down. Appreciate that, my friend. And Christopher Cancel saying, I don't want to prepare to sell. It's saying that Yankees will be better New York team, and I cannot accept that. Here's the unfortunate reality. The Yankees have been a better team for too long now. The Mets haven't controlled the city since the 80s. It's the truth. The Mets have had 1 year spurts like 2006 where they got really close, and that wasn't even close enough because the Yankees were still good. 2015, same thing as well. The Mets have to get better. I don't want them to trade either, but we have to prepare ourselves, right? Like Chris Ferrara says, records don't lie. They don't. And that's where the problem lies. But we're going to wrap up the Subway to Shea podcast here. I appreciate everyone for joining. 118 of you in the room. Thank you for liking the video. Thank you for subscribing to the podcast. One last thing I will post up here for Matt A.B. Ibanez because it's a great point. The Mets need to win if they want respect and consistently do it. It's true. It's true. With that being said, again, thank you for tuning into this show. If you're listening audio-wise, I appreciate you doing that as well. You can follow Subway to Shea on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Listen, and subscribe to the Subway to Shea podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Watch and subscribe on YouTube, like I was talking about earlier. If you enjoyed this episode and just enjoy Subway to Shea in general, you can leave me a review. Hopefully, you give me 5 stars and hit the like button. I appreciate you every week for tuning in. This show is yours just as much as it is mine. And you've helped this brand grow so much that I can't thank you guys enough. And I appreciate you. But with that being said, I hope that the Mets can get back on a winning track starting this weekend. I hope you guys get to enjoy games. Have a great Memorial Day weekend. And as I always like to end the show saying, for Anthony Rivera, this has been the Subway to Shea podcast. Let's go Mets.